So this is part two of the Our Heroes exhibit, which is people in some way or another related to the AIDS crisis. It's a lot of people, some of whom I knew have passed away from AIDS, some people who are still with us. I have the flu as I'm saying this, so not quite as lethal. Mixed in, of course, a lot of politicians who got their pictures into the exhibit, even though, what they've done exactly is not clear. Beginning with Mayor Gray, who may or may not be running again. He got his photo into the exhibit. Here's Ruth Eisenberg. I'm not quite sure who she is or what she did. This is Bob Hattoy, who I actually knew and gave a little advice to, because he was thinking of renting a different apartment or house. He apparently was very lively and creative, but constantly, as you might think somebody would with a terminal illness, was being evicted and falling behind on his rent and developing bad credit. Here's Eleanor Holmes Norton, who only does that with the public budget. And then there are many, many other people. We'll see how many of them we can get into a 10-minute tape. This is part two. We've already done another room. So here are the Metro teens. Here's a fellow, this is another person, they don't give his name. It just says addiction program. This is Kevin Robinson. I kind of recognize the face, but not the name. And this is the Metropolitan Baptist Church. I should say that I'm doing this in part for people who are not in D.C., who may know some of these people and might want to know that their picture is hanging on the wall. If you are one of those people and you want me to come back and take a picture just of your loved one and of the attendant little plaque, I can do that. This is the Metropolitan Community Church, which was built in Shaw before anything else nice and new was. And from the outside looks kind of like a cross between a Frank Lloyd Wright building and a large new basketball stadium. And this is what it looks like from the inside. Here is a woman named Olga Rodriguez. I don't know if I've ever heard of that name. Don't really recognize her. Stephen Smith, I can't say for sure if I ever ran into Stephen Smith, because I have to have run into somebody named Stephen Smith. Don Michaels, I definitely remember that name. He used to be a Blade reporter, I think. Michael St. Andres. I don't think I ever met him. I'm not sure. Miriam's House, another self-help group for people. Hugo Salinas, not quite sure if I remember that name or not. Sean Mitchell, not a really good picture. Not sure if I remember his name. Manuel Sandoval, also not sure if I remember that. Leigh Mosley, I think I've seen her around at a lot of community events before. Daniel Shellhorn, do not recall ever meeting him. Moody Mustafa, who lives down the street from me and is still here, infectious disease doctor. Carol Schwartz, who I know, great woman, was on the city council, now kind of lives in Rehoboth part of the year. Patricia Knowles, don't think I've ever met her. Keith Seiden, I do know somebody named Keith Seiden, I'm not sure if it's him or not. These people actually all look kind of familiar. National Association of People with AIDS. I don't think that most of these people are all still with us, but they do look familiar. The Sexual Minority Youth Assistance League, which is a charity that I have in the past supported very slightly financially. National City Christian Church, which is in Thomas Circle, which is kind of between DuPont and Logan Circles. Shiloh Baptist Church, I'm not sure if I've ever been to it. David Naylor, no other information given. Jane Silver, works in public health. A bunch of safe-sex posters. Michael Singerman, I definitely remember seeing him around a lot in the 80s and 90s. Pediatric AIDS group. Paul Smith, who I think used to Well, maybe he didn't dabble in politics. I'm sure that I met Paul Smith. Jacqueline Pace. Don't think I ever met her. So others might eat. Feeds people with diseases in D.C. Jeffrey Pendleton, a.k.a. Odessa O'Hare. I never really been into drag, but I think I remember maybe him. This is actually a friend of mine who was pretty good friends with. Used to do a lot of lesbian events with Cheryl Spector, who passed away of something else, of course. Not, well, it wasn't AIDS. But she'd had a brother who had also passed away beforehand that she apparently was very close to. I met her after he had, I believe, committed suicide. She seemed to always be sort of disturbed and haunted by it. But she just died of a cardiac problem or something. Derek Perkins, don't think I really remember him. Clifton Allen Robinson and Dwight Clark, I kind of remember those names. Michael Petrellis, kind of nationally famous, and I'm sure I ran into him in D.C. at one point. The National Cathedral. Why? Oh no, that's St. Augustine Catholic Church. I think that's over near 15th and W. Another drag person, Ron Dana Terrell Stewart. Phil Pinnell, who I think is still with us and active in politics. I have run into him occasionally. Otis Buddy Sutson, don't know him. Bruce Rashbaum, I think he's a doctor. I think he actually has a practice in the building next to my co-op, and I think that I've occasionally gotten phone calls for him by people who thought they were calling a doctor's office, because I used to have the same exchange. Omar Reyes, Danielle Pleasant, Rodney Taylor, I do remember that name. I don't know why. Patsy Lynch, another friend of mine. I know I'm lesbians. A photographer who, last time I saw her was probably at a Democratic convention, or maybe slightly after it, where she's taking pictures of people. Mark Washington, don't know him. Reverend Susan Newman. The Urban League. Us Helping Us. A self-help group. This guy's still around, Ron Neely. And works in the field. Steve Michael, who I think used to be famous for doing ACT UP type protest, who has passed away. Sonia Umanzur, don't know who she is. A lot of the women there work in public health. Lambda Rising was the gay bookstore in Washington for decades. It has closed because all the Books A Million and everything now, Barnes & Noble all have a gay section, so they sort of put it out of business. Larry Ehrig was a minister. Wayne Turner, some kind of activist. I remember seeing him around in the past. Whitman Walker is the big clinic here. Frank Ureta, don't think I remember ever seeing or hearing about him, and I'm also not sure about Reed Tuxon. Jessica Xavier is, of course, remembered the way transsexuals always are. Maybe it's one reason some people get into it, I don't know. Anyway, she works in public health. Precious Thomas is the baby I assume. Ryan White, of course, famous. Catalina Soul, I kind of remember that name. Larry Bryant, I feel like I've seen him, but he may just look like somebody who's good looking on TV. Curtis Massey, don't remember, the name seems familiar. Veronica Jenkins, Abby Charles, the Blair Underwood Center, the Westminster Baptist Church, Ron Simmons, I definitely remember that name. Leon Hampton, Billy Tyler, I know that face, but I don't actually know her name. Bobby Smith, I might know that face, but I don't know her name. Gino Dunningham. Now this is a whole crop of people, the DC Community Coalition. I recognize some of those faces. I don't know if they're all still with us or not. I think that's a recent picture, so they probably are. Jeffrey Crowley, also a face I recognize. Is it NIH? This says Greater Calvary Holy Church and doesn't give you the name of this person. Lisa Fitzpatrick. Courtney Williams, kind of a familiar name. Ron Daniels, also kind of a familiar name. And there's some people up there who have their own very special combination of photo and text, but I don't see names. Mark Fisher. Oh, the Washington Blade, but is that the current staff? It does actually look fairly current. Now, I wonder if Metro Weekly is represented here, or the other newspaper. Anthony Burns, Daniel Birch, Justin B. Terry Smith. I think he's still with us. Dr. Douglas Ward and dogs. Brian Watson. Reverend Carol O'Sleeb. George Bellinger. This guy is kind of famous and has been around for a long time. He writes books. John Manuel Andreotte. I haven't seen him in a while because I stopped going to the same jam. Racine Pandavaris. I don't really know quite what to make of all that. And D.C. Seafard. And then we have more pictures here. Who do we have? Tim Westmoreland, I have no idea. The Mayor's Toast Committee, although that kind of looks like Sharon Pratt Kelly. It is. So I guess she's on the Mayor's Toast Committee. George Kerr, I recognize this face. Benton Jones, I'm not sure. Elizabeth Taylor Center. Ron Swanda, I've probably seen him around somewhere. Guy Anthony. Belinda Cunningham. Ronald Morgan, kind of a handsome guy. As is Ernest Walker. Anyway, again, if you know any of these people, especially the ones that passed away, if you want me to take a separate picture of them and their info, I will send it to you. This is Miranda Ward, Marlene Walker, Dr. Paul Gordon, Reverend McCrae, David Von Storch. Oh, he owns Vita. He owns all these nightclubs and gyms, including the one I go to. You can see him live and in person just by going to his gym. He was there a lot. All right. Now we're running way long, but we have a few more here. These ladies, Reverend Joe McCarley, Myron May, who has passed away, Max Robinson, who I think was famous, Sparkle Maharis, a drag queen, Chauncey Lyles, I kind of remember the name and the face. Juan Carlos Lovelace, I kind of remember that name and the face too. Lost and Found was a big nightclub which was destroyed along with lots of others when there was gentrification and eminent domain to create the ballpark. The Leather Rack on 17th Street, I think it might still be there. Who else have we got? Greg Mims. I kind of remember the name, but I don't know if I remember the face. Maxwell Lawton. I definitely remember that face, and he was around forever. This is a photo of Llama's Bookstore, the lesbian bookstore, which closed a little before the gay and lesbian bookstore closed. La Clinica del Pueblo and Kevin Yancey Kenner, kind of a jock and a model, who has taken a photo that doesn't have his face in it, and he tells you why. So that's it. There's another room over there. That's in our first tape.